Wet and
You're
squishy.
Elvis Presley cover band.
What?
Your
Why
number
would
one
it?
track is "Dead on the Toilet," and
Yeah, okay, I get it. I wasn't sure how wet and squishy meets Elvis, although I'm sure he was quite wet and quite squishy some of the time.
that's the first thing I think about when I hear the name Elvis Presley. I don't think about his music
Yeah,
career or his
obviously.
movie career. It's, oh,
Ugh.
that's the guy that died fat and lonely on the toilet.
Yeah, I think he was like at the top and then he went down completely.
He started from the bottom, then he went up to him,
Yeah.
and then he
Right.
died.
Yeah. Fame and fortune did not do him any justice.
And does
Any
it ever really do anybody
Probably. I
much
think
good?
Robert Downey Jr. seems to be doing all right.
Yeah, he went through some years though,
Yeah, but that was
struggling, and
before.
that was
He got
that was
through
the
it.
'90s. Everybody struggled in the '90s.
I struggled. I was, I guess, what, in junior high and high school in the 90s?
Wow,
Elementary school,
that was definitely elementary school for
all of
me.
my childhood for the most part, other than the first 6 years, based on math
For
that I
those,
know
as I
how
say,
to
for
do.
those of you that know how to do math, now you know that Joe was born in 1984.
1984. Actually, I was born May 18th, 1984, and it is now May 15th, so I'm 3 days away from my
Oh shit!
birthday.
I didn't realize it was that close. I'm so bad with birthdays. That's the only reason why I used to have Facebook, was just so I could, it would tell me when people's birthdays
Yeah.
were coming up.
Since I haven't been checking Facebook every day, I have no idea whose birthdays are happening, and I'm sorry. I I'm sorry about that. I don't have them on my calendar, and I don't memorize them very well. I know some of the people in my family technically have
Yeah,
birthdays, and
they
I
have
know
them.
the dates of some of them.
I think statistically, most people have a birthday.
Statistically, everyone has a day of birth if they're alive, but whether they know it or not is another thing.
And well, see, I would like to try to find out what my day of inception was, because that's really your birth. It's
No,
the moment that the little wiggly worm made it into the egg. That's when you were
those are
that's when
weird.
you were really
Those
created.
are weird ways of saying penis and vagina, but that's fine.
No, that was sperm and egg.
I know.
Sperm's the weird little
I
wiggly
know.
guy,
I know.
little tadpole looking motherfucker.
Tadpole looking bitch. That's what I say to my sperm when I'm trying to berate them into growing faster.
And any child that gets named Tad, you just know that that's the parents had no fucking idea what to name them. So it's like, well, you were a fucking tadpole at one point,
Like
so here you go,
tadpole.
Tad.
It's better than being called Pole. I guess Paul is pretty close to that.
Yeah.
My name's Pole. How you
Paul.
doing? My name's Pole. Yeah, my parents named me Tadpole, but forgot to write the Tad because I couldn't spell it correct.
Too many goddamn letters.
My parents are like fucking dumb, so they named me Pole. And then I ended up a stripper for a while.
Well, the name fits.
The name fits. Hello and welcome to the Fleeting Thoughts podcast. My name is Joe.
Hi, I'm Channing. I didn't.
Hello.
How long have we been recording?
Oh, a
The
while
whole
since
time.
Elvis.
Oh, okay,
Since
perfect.
Elvis.
Oh, good. That's when I would have wanted it to start. Because
Yeah.
I just want to alienate at least one person that listens to this podcast who's a
Oh,
diehard Elvis fan.
fucking deal with it. What? Who could that? Nobody is listening to Elvis anymore. There are some old folks who are like in their 80s who are like, I love this stuff. But for the
There's
most part, I mean, Elvis is so out of date.
well, and he's like one of those people that doesn't look kind, like doesn't look, people don't look back on as kindly, because now people
Not
accuse him of
particularly.
just stealing, black
Yeah.
people's music from the time period and then spinning it his own thing and commercializing it. So
Yeah, that is what he is somewhat known for. His what is that called? Allocating cultural
cultural
element
appropriation.
for yeah, that's what it's
I
called.
like the way you were trying to explain it, though.
I was
Let's just put
trying
as
to
many words into
trying to
the trying to
really
say this.
allocating cultural elements for the purpose of financial gain at the cost of the
The
original
detriment of other
cultural
ethnicities.
exhibitors. Yeah, at the detriment of just pure uh niceties, niceness, evil. He's evil. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's why he died fat and on the toilet.
Yeah,
Because he was an evil
I
man.
don't think his music's that great. So
No, no,
not
not at all.
not
Maybe
compared
back
to like
then.
not compared to The Weekend. I mean, come
Yeah,
on, give me a break.
or Limp Bizkit. I mean, come on,
Yeah, talking about
cultural phenomenons.
talking
You
about
know.
jizz biscuit. You know who I do like that is kind of odd is Dua Lipa. She her
Hmm.
dancey songs, and she's so pretty. It just makes me want to be her friend. I want to know her.
All right, Paul. All right,
I want
Paul.
to sing her songs and be next to her sometimes.
Don't know
I,
what I'd say because I'm not very good at talking
oh
to
no,
lady folk,
I
but
wouldn't say nothing. She could just, just talk at me and I'd be your friend.
and I'd nod my head and I'd be like, yes, yes, Miss Lipa,
You,
that's
s-
right.
you sing so pretty. You got the prettiest darn voice. No, I like her music a lot. It's fun. It's fun music. She sings well, and I enjoy it.
And
So
good. We
deal
all
with
need
it.
that.
So
We all
fucking
need
deal with it.
some music that we enjoy, help you find your center and shit.
Yeah, some other bullshit, fucking hippie sayings that don't mean anything. Find my center. They're like my center of gravity.
I always
Is
find
that
my
like in my
center.
gut?
Speaking of being on the toilet and dying, that's where I always find my center is after a
On the
nice
toilet.
good dump. Then I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like purging all the evil from the day before with that. It's just all leaving your
Yeah.
body out your asshole.
Yeah. That's exactly what poop is. I'm sure that's what
Hmm.
they believed back in the day when they didn't know anything about science.
Yeah, what's all this? This came out of my butt.
Why didn't
Well,
we have
that
more?
there's the demons right there,
We
son.
should have had more poop related uh religions. Like, why don't we have more of that?
Let's start one. I'm fucking ready, dude. I'll talk poop all day.
I know, right? Talking poop. That's our next segment.
Let's
I found some corn in my poop. It's called
just
second
do you dig
corn.
it out and then just go
Second
throw it in
corn.
the pan and just recook it?
Uh
Refried corn from your asshole.
you don't want to waste, what God gave you in the way of
Hell
nutrients.
no.
Hell no. So what happened this week that was not so good for you?
Oh man. So
Let's complain. Let's do
let's yeah.
complain talk.
Um well, because as people have noticed, we didn't have an episode last week because
Oh
I
yeah, you
was
were all
incredibly
sickly.
sick. Yes.
Oh, speaking of poops.
Yeah, I got I'm pretty sure I contracted norovirus. Like
What?
it just because
Okay.
I had it a few years ago and this was like the
Oh,
same fucking
you
thing.
had it
Like, yeah.
before?
Yeah.
I gotta look that one up while you're talking.
It's very similar to like food poisoning, but it like kind of drags on for long. Usually with food poisoning, once you kind of purge it out of your system, you feel better pretty quickly. Whereas this sort of drags on for a couple of days. But
Ugh.
yeah, not a good time. Yeah, I started getting sick like Monday right before I was leaving work. Like I was like, ooh, maybe something I ate for lunch didn't sit well with me or something. And I'm the kind of person that like I have a hard time throwing up and I'll refuse to throw up for as long as I possibly can. Like I'll just lay there suffering and knowing that if I just go puke, like I'll feel better. Like it's like yeah, if you just go do it,
Yeah, you
you'll
really
feel so
do.
much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And so I got to that point where I was like, I'm just gonna go fucking squat down in front of the toilet and just chuck. But then I
Yeah.
couldn't. Like I was hovering over the toilet bowl, and I'm usually that triggers me to throw up because the toilet's disgusting. And so, well, there's something about having your face in the
No,
toilet, and
I
then
know.
it's just you immediately are like, ugh. But and I couldn't. So I was like, fuck. So then I'm just like, I go back and I'm sitting on the couch. And I had texted you because we were supposed to record Monday, and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. Like I can barely fucking sit here
Yeah.
without um and then finally I just hit me so bad where I had that situation where I was sitting on the toilet with a garbage can in my lap and it's just spraying out of both ends just really
Oh no.
violently. It was horrible.
Oh no.
So I had that happen. I did that a couple of times Monday night, and then I was out of work on Tuesday and Wednesday because I didn't eat anything on Tuesday. Like I couldn't even hardly keep water down. And then Wednesday, I was finally able to like eat some toast and actually drink water because I was so fucking dehydrated by that point. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
was
not
just,
good. You got
yeah.
to drink water for sure. How do you think you got it?
I don't know. That's the weird
Zombie
thing is
something.
it spreads really
Something you ate
easily.
maybe?
And it's apparently going around like the Eugene Springfield area. So I mean, I could have just fucking come into contact with somebody who had it and it just hit me.
Yeah,
But because last time I
that's
got it, we went to Florence and we ate at Moe's there, which is like a um, seafood restaurant chain
yeah.
like along the Oregon coast. And as we were coming back from Florence that day, I started feeling kind of weird. And then by that night, I was sick as fuck. And that one was so bad that like I couldn't even fucking control my bowels. Like it would just come out of you
Oh,
suddenly. Where like you know
yeah,
how like you can feel it coming. Usually you can kind of clench up and like run to the bathroom. Like
yeah.
you couldn't even clench. Like it would just start coming
Just
out. It was
happens.
fucking
Yeah,
awful.
that's not good, man.
Which I luckily didn't have that this time, but
Yeah.
it was pretty close. So
Well,
anyway,
I'm
that was
sorry.
most of my week was just dealing with that. And then by
Yeah.
Thursday, I was back at work and feeling fine for the most part. So I'm feeling good now. Like I can finally like
Yikes.
I'm still kind of being careful with what I eat and not trying
Hmm.
like just because sometimes if you eat some greasy shit or whatever while your stomach's still recovering, it'll
Yeah.
just make you go nuts again. But yeah, so that
Yeah.
was my week. Now I'm just here. I'm enjoying Mass Effect. The Legendary Edition came
Oh,
out
yeah.
Friday, and every
Yeah.
time those games I play them, I just get fucking obsessed with them. Like I can't stop playing them, and they're so fucking good.
Yeah. They did a really good job with those games. I have a buddy named Jason who just got it as well, and he was raving about it, talking about
Hmm.
playing it. I never played the first one, so that might be fun to play through with the better graphics and such.
Well, not yeah, they improved the graphics and they really improved the gameplay a lot to make it more like Mass Effect 2 and 3 because the first one always played kind of rough
Yeah.
because it was you could tell it was the first attempt at them trying to melt an RPG and a shooter together. And
Yeah.
so it still plays a little rough, but it's way better than originally was. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's totally worth playing. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I remember playing through the second one, and then the third one was super good. It just kind of upped the ante with the graphics and the shooting. But the
Hmm.
second one was, I think, my favorite one. I remember it being a really cool story, and
Hmm.
really feeling like you're moving in this, progressive storyline that seemed like decisions you made kind of mattered, and the characters seemed very real and
Hmm.
very well done. Very, very much like how Uncharted does the whole um, story mixed with seamless gameplay. But obviously, the Mass Effect games are more RPGs than
Hmm.
the Uncharted and Last of Us series. But
Well, they kind of became less RPG heavy as the series went. Like the first one's a lot more RPG heavy than like
yeah,
2 and 3. Like they kind of stripped down and sort of streamlined a lot of those elements in the later
yeah,
ones. But
it's just like
no,
you made your thing a little better. You made your thing a little
mhm,
better. Yeah, not as an RPG as like some games are for
yeah.
sure.
So yeah,
Cool,
my week has turned around now. Is what I'm saying.
nice.
But it was not awesome in the beginning. That's for sure. The first few days were fucking horrible.
Yeah.
How
Well,
about you?
I
You said your week was not awesome either.
well, there were a couple things that were really cool. The first thing that was really cool is I got this for early birthday present. I got a Boss RC1 looper pedal, which
Oh.
is a way to connect my electric guitar and create my own backing tracks and loops, so I can record a thing and then it'll just keep playing,
Hmm.
and then I can play over that thing. So it's very difficult and it takes a bunch of like you have to really pay attention and count, and but it's super duper cool. So I'm excited to play around with that and learn how to use it, and be my own little band.
Hmm.
So that was cool. But then yesterday, so like I've had this issue with my back for a couple weeks, and I think I was complaining about it a couple episodes ago,
I think so. Yeah, I remember.
and it would get better, and I'd be like, okay, well, I can go back to exercising. So then I'd exercise, and then it would kind of flare up again and get a little bit worse. And then the beginning of the week, it was it hurt, but it wasn't crazy bad. And then it like totally felt like it went away, and I felt really decent. And then I worked out like pretty hard because I was like, I want to get back to that.
Hmm.
And then yesterday at work, like halfway through work, it just was the worst it's ever been. It was Just, I think it's a sciatic nerve issue because when I looked it up, everything matches.
Hmm.
All the little tests you can do to find out if it's that. Um, and I was walking around work all day, and it's just got worse and worse and worse, and I had to like take breaks and sit down for 15-20 minutes at a time, and the pain just got really really sharp and really bad. um, so I just went home and just kind of chilled out and um, played some video games with some friends, and then today it feels a lot better. And I did some stretches and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that I can come up with um, a strategy for being able to work out and not have this happen, but I don't
Hmm.
know enough about it. So I think I'm going to go see a doctor about it and find out if there's a permanent issue with my nerve or my spinal cord or my muscles in my lower back and buttocks area, because that's all involved in that.
Hmm.
Um, so that's no fun, and that really sucked. And makes it so it feels like I don't know what I can and can't do. I don't know if I should even go on walks, or if I should just stop working out for a couple days. I think I'm just going to chill out till I talk to a doctor.
That's probably the
Um,
best, just in case you don't want to make it worse,
yeah, I don't want to cause a bunch of damage, and I don't want like the idea of not being able to work out. So I got to find out like what people do in this situation, because um I was enjoying that. So yeah, so that was yesterday was pretty bad. And then today, this morning, I got this, which is my
Your
first
first
shot. My
COVID
first my
vaccine.
first one right in the
Which one
right
did you
arm. It's
do?
right here. Oh my gosh. Oh, it hurts so bad.
Oh, your arm's
No,
gonna
it
be
didn't
so
hurt that bad.
tender.
Oh, it's so tender. It's Moderna.
Oh, nice. That's the one I got too.
And it seems pretty easy.
Just be
Um,
ready, because like, so
the
after
second
I
one,
had,
yeah.
yeah, I had Moderna also, and like after the first one I was totally fine. I didn't have any side other than
Yeah.
my arm ached, which it normally does when you get a shot because they put it in the fucking muscle. But yeah, after the second one, dude, I was out of work for like 2 days because it felt like I got hit by a fucking truck for just like a couple
Two
of
days.
days.
Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah, it was, so just prepare. I mean, some people
Well,
don't have any reaction at all. Vanessa,
yeah.
she did Pfizer, but she was totally fine after both of hers. She said she
Yeah.
felt a little tired, but I mean, other than that, she just kept trucking along.
Yeah.
So,
They auto set up your second appointment. So I got to find out when that is and then see if I can either at least take the day off afterward. Because
hmm.
I'd like to have that day and the day off, the day next, the day after,
Hmm.
to
Time. That's
a
how it
time
works.
in which to 48 hours, please, to be recovered. Just, why not? Might as well take the
Hmm.
next day off, not have to deal with going to work and then not and then leaving or whatever.
Yeah.
I've heard that the second one is more troublesome for a lot of people, but whatever. I need to be able to travel, and they just announced, the governor and the CDC have announced that their recommendation is that if you have a vaccine, that you don't need to be wearing masks everywhere, like all the
At
time.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you still technically have to wear them in like hospitals and certain other places,
Hmm.
um, where they need to, and any business that still keeps that as a policy, you're subject to whatever policies they have. But I'm sure a lot of businesses are just not worrying about it. And
One trying to like force people to wear masks is such a fucking headache. So I'm sure that they're all glad to
oh
just be
yeah.
like, thank God, like I don't have to
Well,
fucking try to enforce this.
what's good now is that people can choose if you feel
Hmm.
like wearing a mask because you're worried or because you want to protect people, you get to do that. If you have the vaccine, you can choose to wear the mask or not. I think that just makes sense. Like at some point, it's got to be just up to people to be wearing masks. Um, and then it's up to businesses to determine what they want to do. I'm guessing they're going to have their employees wearing masks for a little while just to be like you know extra protective and like,
Hmm.
hey, we still want to make sure we don't get the customer sick. But
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of just been at the point where I'm ready to be done with masks, but
yeah,
out of respect for people around me and like whatever business or establishment I'm going to, if they have a requirement, then I'll put it on. I'm not going to sit there and complain about it.
it's
I'm
not
like,
like
what's your
hard.
fucking
Yeah.
place? Yeah. I mean, I
So
still have to wear mine at work. They told us that there's going to be no
yeah,
change to our, but that's because I work in the
yours,
hospital.
yeah,
So
yeah, which
I
is
don't expect us to
yeah.
change anything for a while. But
There's a lot of reasons to wear masks in that
mhm.
environment anyway, because
Yeah,
you're dealing
aside
with lots of issues, lots of different issues.
yeah, but no, I'm glad that what's funny is they were saying, that you don't need to wear a mask if you're fully vaccinated. So, which I was like, oh, that's cool. But then immediately I was like, how are they going to prove that you're vaccinated? The only way you could prove it is if you had your card with you, or because I have my card, which I keep in my safe. And then I took a picture of it, so I have it on my phone. Like if I
Yeah,
need to pull it up and be like, yeah, see, this is my
yeah.
thing right here. But so
Well,
it's
they're
like,
not going to make they're not going to do that. I'm not going to
yeah,
run around and try to be like, "Hey, where's your card? Where's your card? What do you have
hmm
a card?" That's not
yeah,
that's not
it's
going
going
to
to be an
work. So
honor
essentially
system.
it's just either you just wear it or you don't.
Hmm
Um and so and then I think that I'm planning a trip with my mom here at in September, and it involves going in a plane and traveling, and so I know that we want to have that for that. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll just get it and have the vaccine, and that way people will leave me the hell alone.
Yep.
And if I end up getting COVID anyway, then I'll be
At least
fine.
you know you tried, you
Yeah, I
did
tried.
everything you could.
Exactly.
You
I
got
did.
you
I
got your
ever.
vaccines
Yeah.
and it just didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. It just
Yeah.
didn't work, and I'm deadly ill from it because my
From
immune system
failures of
sucks.
science.
Yeah, failures. These fucking failures. But no, I feel good. My back just is worrisome, and but it's tough because it's a nice day and I want to go out and do stuff, but I'm like, I don't even know if I should be like doing hikes like I like to do almost
hmm
every week.
I imagine
Um,
like just like a normal walk would be
yeah,
fine. Maybe not like a hike where you got shit on your back and you're,
yeah.
backpacking around. But if you're just out walking
I think
around
I
on
just
the
need to
sidewalk.
do like instead of doing like a 2 hour outing, just do
Hmm
like an hour of easy walk.
hmm
I think I'll do that today. Speaking of walks, I wanted to tell you about a situation because I haven't really told anybody about it.
Oh
But
shit.
I went last weekend to go take pictures, and I went to a park, Sandy River Delta Park, which is near my house, and it's huge, just acres and acres um, of land and forest, and there's a river right there, and it's one of my favorite places to go, and it's also a huge place for people to take their dogs. And I've been going there for years, and I go there all the time, and there's always dogs, and I never have problems with any dogs ever. And people leave them off the leash, and every once in a while the dogs will get into weird interactions, hierarchy type
Oh
dominance
yeah.
situations, which is fairly normal and probably good for the dogs to deal with out there. And you see people who are not great with their dogs sometimes, but I've never had any dogs aggressively like go after me. And I did this
Oh shit.
this last outing, and it actually happened 2 times in a row. Well, 2 times like right sequentially, and with two different dogs, and their uh, owners were terrible. They really pissed me off. I got so pissed off I left. I literally like, because I got bit by a dog like a few years
Hmm
back, and it like changed the way that I interact with dogs.
Well, yeah.
And like but I've been around dogs since then, and I've not really had any issues. But when these dogs were um growling and running at me this recent time at this park, it like totally triggered me to be like super like my adrenaline went up, my um cortisol levels went like through the roof. I was super pissed. I was like about to scream at these people and yell at them, but I
hmm
didn't. I just like kept walking and kept going because I couldn't even like, I was just mumbling like the whole like, these motherfucking people, fucking dogs and their fucking
hmm
thing. I was yelling at them, to myself, and I just ended up leaving. But so essentially, I just get into the park. I'm barely in the park. And then from behind me, I hear like a loud, deep, non-friendly bark,
hmm
like a bark, 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 bark. And I turn around and there's a Doberman running at me.
Oh shit. Those dogs
And
are scary too.
fuck yeah, it's scary. It's and it's barking at me. Like there's no other dogs near me. Like I don't go and fuck with dogs. I ignore dogs when I'm out at a
Hmm
park, right? They're
Yeah.
not mine. I don't know them, and I'm not interested in them jumping on me or getting to know me. I like to ignore dogs until I get to know their owners, and then I get to know their dogs typically. So this Doberman is just running at me, and then it just kind of slows down and kind of it's herding me away from its owner. It's it's
Yeah.
just trying to scare me off. And so I just stop and I put my head down and I just kind of like go, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not looking at the dog. I'm not threatening the dog. I'm not doing anything. And I just sort of stand there waiting, like waiting for the owner to like take responsibility and get their dog away from me, who is like, I'm allowed to be at this park. And so the person just sort of calls the dog back and the dog runs back over. So I walk off and I keep walking. And then again, it just runs at me again and does it again. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, oh, this is like a problem. Like, I don't know what to do right now. I can't keep walking and I can't go toward the owner because the dog will be pissed. So I just stand there and I'm waiting for the guy to like put his dog on a leash. Like, you need to put your dog on a leash at that point. He's chasing after
Yeah, like if it's
strangers. What
happened
are
a
you doing?
couple of times, you definitely like
It's
I would
horrible.
leash my dog. Like one time can sometimes be, they're just
Like
throwing some
territorial or
shade. Yeah.
something.
But if
Yeah.
they do it again
If it does it
after,
once and then it
yeah.
stays with its owner and then it lets me be, then that's not good, but it's maybe just like a one-time thing, sure.
Hmm.
But it did it again.
But
And then
yeah.
so then I watch it and I turn around, I look at him. I'm like looking at him to see what they're going to do. And the guy just sits there and he just has like a treat out for the dog. And he's trying to like lure the dog back to him, but what he's doing is he's just reinforcing the behavior. So I try to walk off again and it does it one more time. And at that point, I was like, okay, you're a fucking horrible dog owner. You just, you're, you're telling your dog to do this. You're literally saying, go chase people, come back and I'll give you a treat. And he never put it on the leash. And I was just like, I don't even know how, I can't even go be in this park anymore. Um, and they had like 6 dogs and it was him and a lady and they just like didn't even acknowledge me. They didn't go, hey, I'm sorry, I'll put him on a leash and he's you, I don't know, you'd
Hmm.
think,
Yeah.
like, have you ever had a Doberman run at you full speed with no leash, barking in a way that is distressful? Like, how do you not see this as a problem? And so anyway, so I was like, fuck it, I can't go back anyway. I'm just going to go forward and just get away from them, because obviously he wanted me to walk away. He didn't like the owner wanted me to solve the problem by going away from his dog, which is really stupid
Hmm.
and inappropriate, because I shouldn't be forced to move away from your dog. You shouldn't have your dog there. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, I took some deep breaths and I was like, fine, I'll be okay. It's just a young dog who doesn't know better and it didn't attack me. It just was scaring me. So then I keep going and then I see another dog, a little almost like a mini German shepherd. And it's just sitting in the sand and it's just looking at me, but it's not doing anything. It wasn't scary looking. It didn't look worried
Hmm.
about me, but it was looking at me as I walked toward it. And its owner was just sitting right next to it. So I was like, oh, this is no big deal. So I give it I like go super wide and I give it a bunch of room. I'm not like walking at the dog. I'm going around the whole situation, but I'm kind of near the path. And I get closer and closer. And then as I get closer, I get, within a certain range of the owner. And the dog just starts running at me and barking and trying to herd me away. And like aggressively and obviously like fuck you, I'm gonna bite you. And so I just stop and then I look at the owner and I go, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, why are you allowing this to happen? And then he kind of like does the old like, hey Skippy, come on over. He doesn't say I'm sorry, he doesn't say my dog's nice. It's probably because I'm a dude by myself with a big camera. They think like, well, why is that guy out here? This is a dog place, why doesn't he have a dog? I don't know what they're thinking, but
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. It's a public park and there's like hundreds of people there and your dog is chasing random people around. It's not good. So I just freak out. Essentially, I was just super stressed out, and I just walk, I just walk off, like off trail, like through the woods, and like get back to my car and get my car and leave. Just super pissed that like I couldn't go hang out at this spot, and part of it is me and my reaction to it, but it to me, that's just completely not okay. Your dog needs to be able to be trusted when it's off leash at a place where other people are, and it can't be threatening other human beings. It's not
No,
cool.
yeah, totally. And if your dog doesn't listen when you call it
Yeah.
and it's doing that to people, then it needs to be on a leash the whole
Yep.
time. Like period. Um, But yeah, I mean, I've had that happen to us so many times because like um our German Shepherd Dizzy, she's not a friendly dog. Like she doesn't like strangers and she doesn't like other dogs.
Yeah.
Period. I know this about her, so she's always on a leash, and I always keep her right beside me so that she cannot be bothered or bother anybody. And I can't tell you how many times I've been walking her, and I have people with their dogs off leash in their yards and
They just
stuff, and then
run
the
up to you.
dog just comes fucking running at us. And my dog's growling and barking because it doesn't want this. Like she, as long as like the other dogs or like people are like, at least across the street from us, she'll ignore them. She doesn't
Yeah.
care. But she has it, once you get inside her fucking radius, man, she'll start barking.
Yeah.
And like I said, I know this about her. So like whenever we're walking and I see, if I see a couple walking on the other side of the street with a dog or on our side, we'll either cross the street or I just pull her close to me and I just tell her, leave it alone. Let's keep walking. And as long as I tell her that, she usually, she'll try to look at him and I just keep her kind of focused ahead and we just walk by and then I loosen up my grip on her so she has a little bit more leeway. But I've had so many times where dogs just fucking charge at us. And we had a time where a dog straight up attacked her and I had to let her go so that she could defend herself because
Yeah.
the dog just came up and just literally like just clenched onto her neck and started and I'm like and the owners are standing in the yard across the street. They're like, hey, come over here, come here. I'm like, your dog's not listening and your dog's also actually physically attacking my dog right now. So
Yeah.
I just had
And
to let my dog
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And then they're just literally fighting it out. And
That's
then
not good.
it's because I'm like if because I'm holding her and I walk her with a gentle leader,
Oh
and
yeah.
so
So
as
she
I'm trying
can't
to
really
hold
do
her,
much.
it's like it's around her face, and I mean she
Yeah.
can still obviously open her mouth. It's not a muzzle, but
I know. Yeah.
it's like I was at first I'm trying to pull her away from the dog so we can
Yeah.
get away. But she can't defend herself because I'm pulling her by her whole
Yeah.
muzzle.
Yeah.
And so Vanessa's like, just let her go. Like she needs
Yeah.
to be able to defend herself. So I just
Yeah.
let her go. And it's just like
What's
it's
crazy is that when
infuriating.
you do something, like you react to it in a way that seems like appropriate, like you either try to shoo off the other dog or you kick at the other dog or you yell at the other dog, the owners go nuts.
Hmm.
Like you're the problem. Like, don't you realize this dog is essentially a small weapon or a big weapon? Like, this is a fucking, your dog is completely out of control and it's either going to kill my dog or I'm going to defend my dog and try to kill it. Like, what do you
Hmm.
think is happening right now?
Yeah.
People just go about their day with dogs thinking that they're in control or that they've trained them just by doing nothing. And it's insane to me that people don't understand the complexities of dog ownership. Like, dogs were bred as tools that had to be directed and managed. Not, you don't just get a dog and then it's just a good dog. Like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about?
I think that's one of those kind of things that crops up when you're watching like TV shows and movies. Like they never really show much dog training. The dogs always in
Yeah.
movies and shows are just
Yeah.
magically know how to do
And it's
everything.
just sitting there looking off
Yeah,
screen.
and it's
Yeah.
like, well, that's because that dog in real life is trained
Highly
very
trained. Yeah.
fucking well, and that's
Yeah.
why it's in the goddamn movie. But
Yeah.
yeah, it drives me nuts. And I can't stand it. It's one thing, if you have a dog on a leash and it gets out of your grasp because it catches you off guard or something like that. But people who just stand in their yards while their dog runs across the street and accosts you, and then they just are calling their dog but not
Yeah.
moving, and the dog's obviously not listening. I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like,
You know,
come get your dog. It's
you
not
know,
listening.
we need a superhero movie where someone defends people and dogs from bad dogs, like a dog hero that's like goes and punishes bad dogs. That's
Yeah.
stupid, but I'm just saying it's
Well,
really, it's frustrating because it's not the dog's fault
no, it's the
typically.
fucking owners, man.
Sometimes it's like the dog is not, is like broken. I've seen that.
No, I
Like
agree.
they
Some
got
and
beat as a puppy or they like didn't have any, handling as a puppy or something, and now it's fucked,
and
and
some
that's
dogs just
sad.
have bad temperaments, period. Like
Yeah,
that's
for
my
sure.
problem. That's always
Yeah,
been our problem
Dizzy,
with
you
is
didn't go out of
Dizzy.
your
She
way to make
just
her bad.
yeah, she's just got a shitty temperament and we just
Yeah.
have to manage
And
it,
now
basically.
and you have to deal with it. But as long as you're being responsible, it's just about responsibility. Like,
Hmm.
you're responsible for your dog regardless. And it's not something you can reason with. You have to manage it in a certain way. And it's not a joke. It's not funny when your little chihuahua is freaking out. It's not funny to me because the chihuahua's unhappy and everyone around you is annoyed. I was at the beach the other day and some people brought their little I don't know if they were Chihuahuas or Dachshunds or something, and they were just barking the whole time. They're right next to their owners. They're on leashes, which is good, but there's tons of people around trying to have conversations and enjoy the beach, and your dogs are just yapping at everyone. They're like, they're like, hey, there's a person there, there's a person there, there's a person there, that's what they're
Hmm.
thinking. And you're just shut the fuck up. Stop being a piece of shit human being and get your dogs out of there. It's
Yep.
annoying.
Yeah.
Like, can't you just be embarrassed for 2 seconds for yourself and like take care of some shit? Stop being a fucking burden on other people's lives.
Well,
Anyway,
well, I mean, look at how people
no,
raise their actual
no.
human
Well, they
children for the
don't.
most
They
part.
don't
So
put
that's
any effort into it, and
that's what
they
I
don't
mean.
think ahead. They don't read the books. They don't learn about psychology and stuff, and they just suck. It's
Yeah.
frustrating.
But no, I'm in this. Whenever I see like random dog, I get a little nervous anytime I'm like out walking and I just see a dog loose walking around because I'm like chances are that
You
dog's
don't
probably gonna
know.
leave me alone, but there's
Yeah.
a chance that it's gonna fucking come at me because I mean I
Yeah.
don't know anything about that dog. Like,
Yeah. Well,
and I
and
love dogs, but
I
I
know.
also
Yeah.
recognize because
Yeah. But I
I live
respect
with an
them.
aggressive
Yeah.
dog that
I
some of
respect,
them.
you don't know what's going on with dogs,
Hmm.
and they might think of you as a threat because you're in their area. They're all protective, they're all territorial. And
Yep.
it's just whether or not they treat other things like enemies, it's a problem. And people just fucking, I don't know, they just act like it's not that big of a deal. Um but
Well, until you're kicking the dog to defend yourself because it's
yeah,
fucking pulling on your leg or something,
yeah.
and then they're like, "Don't get my dog." It's like Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, I don't know if my dog was biting a person or another dog, I would want them to defend themselves. That's
Hmm.
normal, natural, and weird not to. It's weird to allow yourself to be hurt by something. So, like, what are you expecting? You psychopath. It's like this, they just think that when their dog does that, it's just playing, I think is what they think. And that's not
There's a
how it
big difference.
works.
Yes,
That's not
there's a
how it
big
works.
difference.
When two strange dogs meet each other, they're not playing. They're establishing a dominance hierarchy
Hmm.
immediately. They're trying to figure out who is going to like be in charge as they walk around and do their stuff. They're not necessarily enemies off the bat, but they are trying to figure out who's in charge, and the person should be the one in charge. And that's what people don't usually do, is they think that the dogs kind of have their own culture, and that's violent or something, but it's not. It's, oh, Channing Corn is
I'm still here. I don't know
okay.
why. Yeah,
It's
my
fucking
camera.
hilarious. It literally says Channing
Channing
Corn.
Corn.
It's awesome.
Start video.
There you go.
There, that was weird. I don't know what
Just
happened there. It just randomly decided to shut off.
anyway, that's good. We need to, it's a good breaking point. It really, really bothered me. And now I got to worry about going back to that park because it's gonna it's gonna make me super nervous around dogs I don't need to be nervous around. And
I
it's not
mean, part
good.
of there was literally a neighborhood that part of the reason why we moved
Yeah.
was because everybody in this neighborhood had their dogs out all the time off leash, and they were constantly harassing us and our dogs when we would take them walking. Because
Yeah.
we never have our dogs off leash when we go outside, unless we take them on the backyard, but the fucking backyard's fenced, so they
Yeah.
can't get out. But
Yeah.
it's like if I take them out walking, I don't just let them off leash. They're always on leash.
Well, if
Um,
you're in a regular neighborhood, like, how do you know there aren't kids? And even if your dog isn't um, going to hurt them, it might jump on them and
mhm.
knock them to the ground. Like, that's a pretty, you know, easy thing for a dog to accidentally do to a child. Your dog is not, it's not like a fun part of other people's lives. Your dog is just annoying to most people. Like, why is your dog just doing whatever it wants?
Mhm.
Or you'll like walk by somebody's house and their dog's just freaking out at the fence, and you're like, that's not good for the dog. Dogs don't want to be stressed out and scared and upset all the time.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's why I don't leave my house.
It's a good reason. I don't blame you.
That's why I'm
Don't
a
go to the
shut in.
park anymore. Just you be like, I can't go to parks ever again. No
Nope.
park in the world
No
ever.
park. Nope. Because there could be a wild dog running around. Wild chicken. I don't think there's very many wild dogs running around in America, but I bet there are like dogs that just got away and lived
Oh
out on
yeah.
their own.
I'm sure it's much more common for like cats and
Yeah,
shit.
I mean, cats are all over the place, but they don't
Hmm.
really attack you. They
No,
know better. They're
they're
too small.
they're pretty scared of people.
You know what they should do is if you have a dog that's like bigger than a medium-sized dog and it ever has a problem, then they just go, you can't handle a medium-sized dog, and then they swap it out for a little dog. Like you just have to work your way up to bigger dogs. Like your first dog has to be like a small dog, like
I
a
feel like everybody's first dog should
or
just be a lab
a lab.
because
Yeah,
they're just so friendly and easygoing and they're
yeah.
easy to train, very low
I don't
maintenance.
think I've
Like,
ever seen a bad lab
yeah,
or a retriever.
there's like a reason why they're by a landslide the number one
Yeah,
owned dog in this
or
country.
like collies or there's certain dogs. What are they called?
See, collies are really friendly, but they're also super high energy, which is not good for some
Yeah,
people because a lot
but
of
I've
people are
never seen them
lazy.
like be
So,
mean to anybody. I've never
mhm,
seen them be aggressive toward people or dogs.
yeah.
Um, a lot of the little dogs, beagles, I've seen be really horrible. Dalmatians, I've seen be really horrible. Um, I haven't seen pit bulls be really horrible, but pit bulls are scary anyway. Because
Pit
like if they
bulls
start
just look
growling at you,
scary.
even if they're
Yeah.
having like if you've ever seen them playing, like two pit bulls that know each other and they're playing, they can be very scary to listen to.
That's how
Because they have
German
a scary
Shepherds are
growl.
because they're
Yeah,
very vocal ones. But even when they're
yeah,
playing, like Dizzy gets really loud, and you're like, Jesus Christ.
yeah, scary. Anyway, that's enough of dog
Dog
complaining.
episode.
Dog talk.
Dog talk.
All right,
It's a
let's
new
get
segment.
into our little topic here. You have offered up something to chat about.
Oh yeah, I almost
Oh
forgot.
yeah, oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah. I
Well,
mean, we
so
don't have to, but
um, well, it's an interesting. I feel like it's a tough subject
it is.
without
Like, what are we?
I guess it's like trying to figure out what exactly we want to talk about because I was talking about like, oh, we should talk about war, and the reason why that came to mind is because we just finished watching. I don't. Did you ever watch Band of Brothers on HBO? It's
Is
like a
that the?
10-part miniseries.
I probably have seen it, but I don't think I've ever watched the whole thing.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I
came
think I
out in like
watched parts of it.
2001, so it's been out for like 20 years. But it's fucking good. I've just never watched it. Um, but it's something like Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg and a bunch of other people obviously worked on it. But those were like the two big names attached to it because they put it together after Saving Private Ryan came out. It's kind of like a sort of a companion piece to that where they interviewed World War II vets from Easy Company, which is they were an airborne uh, regiment during World War II. And so they have like real people. The characters are all based off real people, and they interviewed them. And so it's a really popular show because it's they from what I read, they pretty much said it's the most accurate portrayal of World War II. As far as like what the soldiers actually endured, what they went through, the tactics, the everything basically. It's like the most accurate look at it. But yeah, it's like a 10-part thing that covers like 2 or 3 years of the war from the time that this company drops in to I believe it's France, if I remember correctly, and then kind of their campaign through Europe until the point where they invaded Germany at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I was just looking at it at the photos of it, and I have
mhm.
seen it. Yeah, it's really really good. It's very it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of dry for entertainment because I think they're going for more of a documentary kind of style. But the
Well,
actors
some
are
yeah,
amazing in it.
yeah, some of the episodes were kind of like slow because it's like the in between, but then there's like episodes where the whole episode
Yeah,
is like an hour
just
long battle, and
fighting.
you're like,
Yeah,
it's like really tense.
yeah, it's a
Um,
tense movie
mhm.
in general. But yeah, I have seen that. It's I think I'm remembering. Did they do the interview at the beginning or the end of the episode?
They usually did it at the very beginning of each
Yeah,
episode. There would be like a
like
five
the
minute
real
segment
person.
where they
Yeah,
were had like a few of the real people just making comments or talking about
yeah.
different things, and then it would go into the episode. I think the very last episode they did at the end, where they revealed who each of these like
Oh
elderly
yeah,
men they were talking about, like, oh, this was actually him and this was
yeah,
him, and
yeah.
so it's kind of cool. But no, anyway, so as we were watching that series, I'm like, oh, this would be like an interesting topic. It's just talking about war. But that's a very huge, I mean, that's a really broad
Yeah.
subject. Because whenever I'm watching one of these like a film or a show that's about war and you see people, the only thing I can think the whole time is like I would just be mortified the whole fucking time I was involved in a battle. Like especially the scenes where you have to see them like where they have to sprint across a battlefield into on like incoming enemy fire. You're like at any moment you could just be cut down,
Yeah.
like and there's nothing you can really do about it other than just fucking hide in a foxhole and just cry yourself to sleep.
Yeah, I'm sure
it,
that's exactly what happens with most people. I think part of what emotions you feel during that type of situation is your perception of the justification for it. And so I feel like wars where you feel like your entire culture is on the line, or you're like, if somebody's invading your country, your feelings are not of like, oh, I'm sad that I'm killing another human being. It's more like, I need to survive, and this is very justified. I'm defending myself. And you probably sleep better, even though you may have been very violent, because you can justify it in a certain way. Like psychologically, you can say, this is a good cause. I'm doing the right thing, even though it's very hard. But as opposed to like a war where you're very disconnected from the causes, and it's vague, and it isn't just you defending your people. So I think in World War II there was probably a lot of mixed emotions because it was other on foreign soil for Americans, but it seemed like the right thing to do because of Hitler and because of all the death and
well,
because
and
of
Pearl
the
Harbor was like the big catalyst for
sure. And I'm sure
why.
at that point we were like, well, now it's on us and all that. So, um, but I don't think that takes away from the emotional toll and trauma and almost dying and watching people die and your friends. And I don't think there's anything that really stops that from being
Well, I mean, you'd have
emotional.
these, especially in the Band of Brothers show, as they're interviewing a lot of
Yeah.
these guys, it's been like almost 60 years since they were in battle in this war. And as they're talking about it, they still start like
Yeah.
crying because, I mean, like that's a trauma that just is fucking probably feels fresh every day and it never goes away. Because a lot of things like that, if a loved one dies, usually after, especially after nearly 6 decades, I feel like you've come to terms with it and you don't probably get as upset talking about it as if they had just freshly died recently. Whereas these guys, you would think that after so much time had gone by that they would be I guess like a little bit more numb to it because there's so much time since it's
Yeah.
actually happened. But a lot of them, it's they just start breaking down while they're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's also connected to a lot of um like trauma is, when you get traumatized, you have additional things that occur that allow you to kind of recreate that moment viscerally. And so I don't know, I think there's like exposure therapy where you kind of deal with the triggers a lot. And I'm guessing a lot of people from World War II didn't go to therapy, and they probably, a lot of them just don't talk about it. And then
Mhm.
eventually, somebody wants to talk about it, and then they relive it in a way in their heads, and it brings back a lot of the emotional, uh, physical pieces, like the same physical mechanisms in the brain are enacted. And so you get the extra adrenaline and the cortisol and um, the kind of hormones and neurotransmitters come back to you physically, like they actually come back, and you relive it in a minor way. um, that's why like trauma, it sort of burns in these experiences. And in order to relieve yourself of those traumatic triggers, a lot of times you have to like deal with the physicality of the experience and retrain your brain and retrain your body to feel safe when you're thinking about it,
Mhm.
as opposed to feeling like you're back in it. um, and then there's also research with mushrooms and MDMA related to PTSD as well. But I think part of it's also good. Like I think you kind of, when you go through that kind of stuff, it's probably good to have that revulsion kind of feeling, so that you don't go seeking it out again.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
I don't
almost
know.
like it goes to show that you still have some morality, or
Yeah,
that you still have
some
like a limit of some kind,
yeah,
instead of just becoming like a full-fledged psychopath that doesn't have any
yeah,
empathy or feel anything.
yeah,
Um, but it
yeah.
terrifying. So like I'm
I don't
glad
know.
that I've never will hopefully ever have to fight in a fucking war. Like I'm just because I'm such a pacifist anyway. Like I don't
Yeah,
like violent confrontation. I've never had like a violent altercation with anybody before. So it's like the idea of fighting in a war is it's fucking terrifying to me on multiple
yeah,
levels. I mean, I would defend myself obviously if I had like somebody's attacking you. It's like a live or die kind of thing. You're always going to defend yourself for the most part because it's sort of your natural
hopefully.
desire to survive and keep living. But God.
Yeah, it's not, it's just different when you're like, you join the military, you go through boot camp, you find camaraderie with these people who've gone through these hardships that in the training, and then you're over at like another country and you have a gun and you're actually just shooting at human beings that look somewhat like you, or maybe they don't.
Well, and you're
It's
going to another
crazy. I don't
country
know.
where most of them probably view you as the bad guy, as the
Of
enemy,
course,
because especially if
obviously.
you're invading their place, and you're on their land and their
Yeah.
country, fucking attacking their people. I mean, that's not always the case. Like, in the case of World War II, the French were being occupied by Germany. So I'm sure, when the Americans and the British, the Allies were showing up, they were probably happy to see them because they're like, oh, thank God there's somebody here to help us deal with
Yeah, I
these
don't know.
fucking crazy sons of bitches. But
Well, and in England, they were getting bombed
mhm.
by Germany, and like I can't imagine being. It's like if you lived in New York and it's just being bombed by fucking foreign planes. Like, you don't know if you're gonna die in the next, bombing run. It leaves like a major kind of scar on the people, who live through it.
Mhm.
And it has like cultural effects like Japan. I'm sure there's tons of effects that came from bombing Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Like, um I'm sure they didn't trust America at all. I mean, I don't even know if they still should. I don't know if anybody should really trust any
Yeah,
other country
it's
to do something or not do something.
it's interesting how quickly it seems like America and Japan sort of patch things up because it's only been like
I don't
80
Yeah,
years, but well, seemingly anyway, like they have working relationships, they trade,
yeah.
it doesn't seem like there's a lot of bad blood there for, us decimating two of their fucking cities and killing
Well, we took
thousands of
we
people.
we won.
Hmm.
That's a lot of the reason why you win something like that, is so that you can keep working with those people.
Yeah.
They had a particular philosophy that we were antithetical to, and then we bombed the shit out of them, and
Well, they had to
that took out
because
all their power.
because Japan didn't, like, Germany surrendered before Japan. Like, Germany surrendered and Hitler had fucking killed himself
Oh yeah.
before Japan even like,
Well, and
because
they just kept going.
because that's like part of their culture is that
Yeah, it's to
they're
not
bound by this
surrender.
honor where they don't surrender. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why they were like, we have to drop, like, if we don't drop these bombs, they're just going to keep coming at us and it's never going to stop. So I
Yeah,
can't
that's a tough decision to
like,
make.
imagine, yeah, how haunting of a decision that is. Like, as the
I don't
president,
know.
being the one to be like, well, I mean, this kind of falls on you. We either drop these bombs and potentially end the war, but in the process, you're going to kill countless thousands of civilians in this other country, or you don't and potentially lose, however many more American lives
Yeah.
in the process of just fighting this war on the ground like we have been. So, I mean, I think ultimately in the end, for the survival of our own country and to end the war, it was probably the right choice. But
I think it's an impossible like dichotomy to discuss fully. Like, you just can't really, like, it's done, it happened.
mhm.
And I think it shows that diplomacy is probably like way more important than anything else between countries. Like, economic entanglements that are mutually beneficial are probably like the best things, because they force countries to cooperate. But when something gets in the way, and one of them has a unresolvable issue with the other, I don't know, people die, and it's you know kind of ruinous,
Hmm.
kind of fucks with everything. But I guess states have their reasons and justifications for it and all that. Like in World War I with the Franz Ferdinand or whatever getting
Yeah,
assassinated,
assassinated.
and that sort of lit everything up and was like, fuck you, no, fuck you.
Hmm.
I think we tend to rationalize wars, but I don't think that they come from rationality. They come from leaders who are angry, or
Hmm.
leaders who are interested in power and taking over. And it isn't like the rationality isn't moralistic. It's it's power driven. It's control driven.
Well, and
um
part of it too, I think, is it comes from the people too, because the example of World War II with Pearl Harbor. It's like after Pearl Harbor was bombed and America was attacked by the Japanese. Like it's like not. I'm sure leaders were already wanting to go to war because there's always ulterior motives. But then once you have all the people on your side,
yeah,
most of your
that's true.
citizens are like, let's go get these motherfuckers because they just attacked us and killed our
Yeah.
boys.
Well, that's what you need.
Uh-huh.
You have to have a willing, or if you have a willing army that is uh, believing in the cause, then they'll fight more. They'll fight harder and they'll fight for each other. Whereas if you have a military that doesn't trust its government, the actual soldiers won't do as good of a job, or they'll surrender easily, or um, they'll like run away, because they
Hmm.
don't believe in the cause. Because if you want people to kill other people for you, they have to have a reason for it. They have to think that there's that the alternative is worse, you
Hmm.
know. So it's interesting, like in Vietnam or whatever, when um people don't really know why they're doing it, and then they're just dying in droves,
Well, and they had
on
to
in
instate
hills.
the draft for Vietnam because nobody wanted to fucking go.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas like World War II, I don't think they
it's
had to
never going to
instate
be
the
as good.
draft because everybody was just ready to go at
I
that
think
point.
there was a draft in World War II.
I think there was, but I mean,
um
I don't think it
I think
was.
that it was just because they needed everyone. They just
Hmm.
need, not literally, but they needed as many people as possible. um and I was looking at the Wikipedia on death counts. It's fucking insane. Like World War
Well,
II, it was 56 million to 85 million, depending, like on how you do it,
hmm.
because they can't be that accurate. But that's like crazy. Almost 100 million people um just dead, just gone in a matter of 5-10 years.
Oh yes, so 61.2% of the soldiers in World War II were actually drafted,
Yeah, over
and
half.
so 38, almost 39% of them were actually volunteers after Pearl Harbor. So.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Hmm.
38% of that many people. Well, and it
It
just
is.
shows how many people were on the earth, how many people were involved in the war in each country. It's just millions and millions and millions and millions of people just running around, mobilizing and generating, ammunition and things like that. It's a humongous effort.
Oh wow.
um
Just because we're just talking about draft percentages, apparently in Vietnam, only 2/3 of the men who served in Vietnam were actually volunteers. Apparently,
yeah,
that's a common misconception, is that most of them had to be drafted, but nope, 2/3, so 66% roughly of them were actually volunteers in Vietnam. That's interesting because I mean, I guess I haven't delved a whole lot into the Vietnam research, but
yeah,
you would think that like with World War II or even Iraq wars that started in early 2000 after 9/11, you think those would be the ones with the highest volunteer counts because those were those conflicts stemmed from us being attacked by all exterior force basically. It's interesting. Like it's fascinating in how lucky the United States has been in terms of war because we've never really outside of
9/11.
like the really early wars, like I guess technically
Oh
the
yeah,
American Revolution and Civil War, we've never fought a war on our own soil. Like we always are going to another country. It's like
yeah,
I was thinking about that, going back to how you were talking about how we've never had cities that were being bombed like Britain was during World War II. I mean, outside of like these isolated terrorist attacks,
yeah.
we haven't ever been like really attacked.
Yeah,
and or invaded, because this would be such an interesting country to invade because we have so many
it's
fucking
huge.
guns.
Well, that
Well,
too,
we
now
like
especially.
so many civilians have guns, and it would just be, I
Yeah.
wonder if that's part of the reason why sometimes they're just like, if a country's considering that, they're like, well, not only would we be fighting the military, like the US military, but you would have all these civilians running around everywhere with firearms. You have all the
Yeah.
fucking rednecks with their AR-15s. And imagine invading like New York City or LA or something, places where there's like gang activity, like the gangs would
Yeah, I don't
probably like,
know.
it would just be such a weird uh
Well,
thing to see
you've
unfold.
seen like Red Dawn, right?
Hmm.
Even the newer Red Dawn. That's, I think, what kind of people think would happen is, even if you did successfully take out the military or like the major forces, and maybe you killed off the government, and you took over the country and you started invading, you would just have little terrorist groups of revolutionaries or rebels, and
Hmm.
I mean, it would just be a constant fight. You would never be able to win over the the rebels in the woods. And I mean, think about the forests and the areas that people could retreat to and hide in, and it would just be super difficult because it's such a huge land that
Hmm.
is totally survivable. You can what you We don't even have enough people to cover our entire landmass. So
Hmm.
another country after a war is just gonna, I mean, what would they gain from it anyway? That's the whole thing about like wars now in this capacity. What would you gain from taking over the US other than you would take over some economic um, you know, priorities? You would you could have new factories and new energy places, and you could take over some people. But I could see much more like a big country taking over small countries, because you can take over their political system and their economy and like force them to deal with you, like interact with you, especially oil. That's kind of the one that comes to mind.
Hmm.
Like, what other resources are we murdering each other for as countries?
Well, I feel like the resources that'll start to become more important are the resources that we need to build like computer processing chips and stuff. Because I mean,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
inevitably that'll be the future, is like whatever precious metals that you need to
there'll be money for in that.
build all these things. Because I would like to think that eventually we would get to a point where we don't really need oil anymore, at least in terms of using them for fuel for vehicles and things like that. Like, I imagine eventually we'll get to a point where all vehicles will just be electric. I mean, it's going to be a long time, but I think eventually we would get there. So
Yeah,
then I think it would become more of a battle for precious metals to continue producing different
yeah,
processing chips and things like that for all your technology, which is already kind of becoming a struggle with the pandemic, because I know there's been a huge shortage in semiconductors and things like that. So, like, car production this year has really been limited by that, because all new cars use all these chips. Computers, fucking video game consoles, like all this stuff
yeah.
has been really hamstrung this year because of the production of everybody's using the same fucking processing chips for things, cell phones, etc.
Yeah, it's like we want everything to be super nice, so we create this technology and then we go like running out of the fucking stuff to do it.
Hmm.
We're like, uh," like, I don't know. Uh, I guess we need all of it now. The more technology we have, the more we depend on it, and the more we're willing to fight to keep our way of life going. It's kind of interesting. I don't know what kind of wars will ensue now. I mean, we're still technically at war with terror, right? Like, that's still fucking going on. Like, do we
Hmm.
still have like occupations and things like that in Afghanistan and stuff? So like, we're kind of all over the place. America has military bases fucking in hundreds of places. So
And we're like the world
um,
police. It's interesting. We're
well,
just.
I think it's super smart of a country that can't afford it to be everywhere, to know
Hmm.
what's going on. Like, and China's like super known for information gathering. And so, China is probably the biggest potential military issue that we're going to have is with China, and China wants to kind of take over, and they have a centralized kind of um, control over everything that happens in their country. So,
Fucking
um,
communists. God damn
yeah,
it.
well, they really are like, I mean, there's not a lot of people making decisions over there that matter. Like, we have a president who has a lot of limitations. They have essentially a dictator who can
Hmm.
do whatever he wants with the entire economy of that place and could draft everybody and all people to be in the military if they wanted to. And maybe some people would fight back, but I doubt it. I doubt very many of the people in China have the means to rebel against their country. They don't even have the information that it was even coming, probably because they
Yeah.
control information too. So I think they are, and they know what's going on in America. They know when we're doing new things and stuff like that. Maybe that's like why Elon Musk and stuff are, he's like, I don't even want to deal with the world anymore. I want to get off the planet and use, you know, solar energy and be more independent from all these potential conflicting resource gathering issues.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's one of those things that because politics and diplomacy all happens behind doors, we wouldn't know it until it like was on our doorstep. We
Yeah.
would, it was, we'd end up getting bombed or something, or there would be like a crazy amount of terrorist actions all in, a couple days, and then our country would be like, well, we're at war with North Korea and China all at the same time or something. Which to me is like, again, like, why? Like, I it seems like people are the best resource because people generate production and they can produce things, they can work, they can be labor forces. And so by killing a bunch of people, I guess you force the other people who live into your regime. And that's the
Yeah.
idea. But by killing all those people, those are people that can't be resources to you.
So say wasted
So
resources for every
you're
person killed.
yeah, it's like a cost benefit. Like, I guess if we kill 1,000 people, but we gain 80,000 people as a labor force, and at some point it kind of just feels like back in the day where they would just, you could just make everybody slaves. But if I guess they could just do that. Like, well, there's nothing stopping a country from taking over and enslaving their people. Technically, like, there's
I know.
nothing other than
What's
just they
scary
could
is
just do it.
even our own or even our own government could do that to us if they really wanted. Like, none of us could
There's
fight against the
nothing.
U.S. military. Like,
I don't think so. The problem with that is that I think it's harder to get the people to go against their own people because they're
yeah.
families, right? Like, all of the people in the military have families back at home, and unless they all agree that the
Unless you incentivize
cause,
them,
yeah, there
like,
has
hey,
to
we're going
be,
to protect your family if you
maybe they could do that.
do
But
X, Y, and Z.
I think there's the diversity in the military is huge. Like, there's no one particular group of people you could just be like, okay, now we have it what we need and we can take over the rest. There's just every walk of life is running around in the military, and um, they all have connections with civilians. So I think that's a difficult thing that's where your civil war comes in. That's
Hmm.
where one side decides to go against the other side because of ideologies, and you have to pick a side. I think that's probably the scariest thing to do. I'd rather have a war with a country that's obviously, causing a problem like another outside country than to have to go, well, I'm choosing the side that I'm not even interested in because my family's on that side or something like
Hmm.
that. Because, like, I don't know if I don't think my ideologies are more important than, like, not killing my brother. Like,
Yeah.
if it came down to it, like, I would probably just acquiesce to what my brother wants because I don't want to fight him. But
Hmm.
unless it's really, really important, like, there could be a cause that I would be like, fuck everybody, I'm killing everybody for it. Um, like, I don't
Baby
know if,
raping, something like that.
yeah, sure. They're like, okay, we think that we need to be raping everybody and killing every third baby, and that's what God wants. And I'd be like,
Hmm.
well, I'm sorry, you guys are wrong, and that's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's got to be pretty
Well,
bad for that to
if it was
happen.
a religious crusade of anything, I'd be out. I'm like, I can't. No,
I know
no,
that's a
I'm not.
tough
I'm
one.
not doing this with you guys. Like, if you're gonna start telling me that you're doing this in the name of fucking imaginary spaghetti monster man in the
Yeah,
sky, I'm
and
out.
yeah,
Like,
and
just
you're
kill
using
me.
that just to justify it because
Yeah.
obviously you just want power or whatever. Um, yeah, it's not something I want to deal with, but it's also something we don't think about as like a total possibility. Like, We don't know.
No.
It's
I
hard
feel
to
like people
say.
were murmuring it a little bit, towards the end of the Trump presidency with the
Yeah,
election. People were like, "You made civil war." And it's like, I don't think there would be a civil war because all of us enjoy the comfort of our first world lives too much
yeah,
to stir that up. I'm sure there's some extremists, obviously. There always are in any
yeah.
situation that would be totally willing to fucking pull
Not,
out the
most of
guns
us
and
don't
start
want
going to
that.
town, but an overwhelming majority do not want that.
Yeah,
I
uh,
honestly, life's pretty awesome most of the time.
yeah,
So why stir, why kick the hornet's
yeah.
nest?
Until people start to starve in the streets or kill each other in the streets, it's really not like that's when you have to fight, because it's you only fight when it's worse not to fight.
Hmm.
So like revolutions, bloody revolutions don't occur when everybody's,
Doing well.
got
Yeah.
Netflix and they're fucking, they can eat and all
Yeah.
that. It's just not going to happen. Like the government knows how to not just completely alienate everyone in the system. The democracies are kind of like the reason democracies do well and why they exist is because it spreads all of that like angst around. It like doesn't make one person the bad guy and then they just do something like literally kills off a bunch of people and then they have to revolt. It just makes it more it takes longer to cause huge problems, which is good. That's like kind of a good thing in a big society, is to not have somebody go, well, now all we're not producing corn anymore, and or if you have a wheat field, it now is owned by the government, and we're going to regulate who gets wheat and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you cause tons of problems, when it's all tried to be centrally located.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a really good podcast where this guy had been doing all this research on um, how governments deal with catastrophes, like huge earthquakes that you didn't see coming, or volcano eruptions or wars,
Or
uh, and
COVID-19.
and exactly. And then the last part of the book that he was promoting on there was that he did this whole study on like how different countries did different things to react to COVID. And like some countries, they had barely any death toll and they like really tracked things down, and they did a lot more in the way of um, quarantining and things like that. And what they call it, uh, contact tracing, I think is what it's called.
Hmm.
And how like the US and the British governments, because he was British, but he did studies on a bunch of different countries, were like did like the worst. They were the ones who said they were the most prepared. They had tons of like plans, but none of them were actually useful and practiced, and they had some of the worst compliance issues and the worst death tolls and the worst information about things, like how the CDC like would say one thing one day and then say another thing the next day. It was kind of an interesting conversation this guy was having about how certain countries, especially ones like China that are communistic and kind of dictatorships, um,
Well, it's
they,
because they
they
can force people to do things.
yeah,
Like
they can do that,
they're gonna
and
be
so
like, you
that's
are
a
all gonna be in
yeah,
your fucking apartments
yeah.
for the next 2 weeks, and you're not coming out. If you come out, we'll fucking shoot you.
Well, and
Like,
they
you know
have
what I mean? Like,
surveillance too. They
exactly.
have tons of surveillance methods. He was talking about how also countries like America and Britain tend to put a ton of money into the catastrophes we see coming, the ones we know about, like global warming and things like that. But then when something actually happens, it's never the thing you see coming. It's, like a kind of surprise emergency. And we're not good at predicting those and seeing those and planning for those because we think that they have low probabilities. But
Hmm.
those are the kind of things that actually do the worst damage because you didn't think that they were a big deal. Um, Whereas there are countries that are a little bit more um, they're less confident about like knowing what's going to happen, and so they're more flexible in the way that their government is run, and so when something does happen they can maneuver quickly and make decisions based on what's going on, as opposed to um, like trying to act like they knew what was going on the whole time, and this is the plan and we're going to stick to this plan even if it like doesn't really make any sense. I think he was talking about South Korea and I think another Asian country that like did a really good job. And part of the reason is because they leveraged technology really well, but also they didn't um, they didn't force everything to be centrally commanded. So people could make more decisions that were like on the ground dealing with it. Anyway, I didn't read the book, so I just thought it was interesting that he was talking about like, um, like like asteroid planning is like non-existent, and infrastructure, like we don't do a great job of shoring up infrastructure for things like solar flares and these things that we just don't really think about, but that are definitely threats, and that couldn't happen.
Well, in some of those some of those instances, like if a solar flare hit the fucking planet and just made it so that most of it was inhabitable, unless you were like in some kind of bunker, it's like I guess the quality of life at that point, like
Yeah.
I mean, do we even really want to live at that point? I mean, do
Well,
you want to just
sure. I
spend?
mean, that's the whole point of like a government's job is to like try to protect people. But I think
Yeah.
with a solar flare, it's not like a nuclear winter. It's just that your electrical grid goes down, and you
Mm.
can actually add to your electrical grid and shore it up in certain places to make it so it doesn't have as big of an
Yeah, I
impact.
was God, I was watching like a documentary. It was a while ago, but they were talking about how like that's like the number one threat to our country is our infrastructure because a lot of like our like power lines and things that shit was built
Yeah,
fucking decades
long
ago,
times
and
ago.
all we've done since then is just maintain them by
Yeah,
replacing the little pieces that go out or
yeah,
fall down or and they're like realistically you would have to go through and literally completely revamp the entire infrastructure of this entire country because all of this stuff is just so old and we don't really put the money or
yeah.
effort into it. We just fix it when it breaks, but we don't really maintain it that
Yeah.
well.
Well, think about
And
how old the plumbing is. Like,
mm-hmm.
I mean, you can imagine like the sewer systems and the plumbing systems, the water filtration systems. I know the
That's
water
where
filter
most
systems
of
are probably
our
newer, but
most
yeah,
of our water waste is due to infrastructure too, leaking pipes and shit. Like in
I can't
cities, they
imagine.
just
Yeah,
it
it's probably
just
nuts.
yeah.
Well, and all of that kind of goes toward the destruction of, society. Something can happen that really ruins a whole your ability to get resources to a city,
Mm-hmm.
and that could cause a huge problem. I just don't think it's been so long since we dealt with one of these major catastrophes that we just don't think about it very often. He was also talking about wars and how like we kind of think wars are in the past because of we had these big wars in World War II, and we haven't had any major wars since then. But like war is like the most common predictable thing in history. Like it's we've never not had wars, you know what I mean? And so even if you look at the list on Wikipedia of like wars, it's just this like there's like hundreds of wars that
Yeah,
just
yeah, constant.
continuously are always happening because people are always interested in power and pushing things and
Wasn't usually like the Middle East
areas.
and areas
Well,
like that
yeah.
are like con just
Yeah,
never
and
ending
in
struggles.
places in Africa and things like that.
Hmm.
So it's like I don't know. I don't know what you can do about it, but having people in your country who literally don't even know that that's possible and have any idea what it would be like, or like people talk about being prepared or whatever, preparedness and prepping and things, and but having a bunch of water and food just set aside in your place because maybe the power goes out for a week. That happens. I'm pretty sure it happened like this year or whatever, last year,
Hmm.
where the power went out for a little while because of some storms or the winter or whatever. Like it
Well,
does happen.
we had power outages
What
for a
was
little
that? I
while with
forget what
all
that
those
was.
the big wildfires last summer. We're taking
Yeah,
some
wasn't
stuff
it
out
that?
too. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
And I think my power went out for a little while, but my brother's power just in a different part of Portland went out for like a week, literally like a
Hmm.
week. And um, that sucks. That's the sign of you might not get your power back. Like how do you know you're going to get your power back?
Yeah.
It's interesting, but at the same time, it's like, is it really a problem? Like I'm doing all right. Do I really need to worry about it?
Well, I'm fucking yeah. Well, this in terms of war, I mean, that's just always going to exist. As long as you have like people with different beliefs
Yeah,
that conflict with each other,
yeah,
I mean, because I feel like a lot of the wars, are usually like based off of religion. It's usually like one religious sect fucking hates this other one, and so they're gonna kill each other until only one exists, and then I
Yeah.
guess that's the true religion right there.
Yeah. Because they religions are so holistically binding. They're
Hmm.
100% like your ability to appease God and go to heaven or whatever your end goal is has to do with um a lot of times has to do with like other people also believing it. It's so crazy. Like
Yeah.
if your God is real and you're doing the right stuff, how does that also involve killing the people who don't believe in that God? Your God's such an asshole that he's like, if somebody doesn't believe in me, they should die.
Well, that's the funny thing
It's
about
crazy.
God, right? Is wouldn't God, if this omniscient being, I don't think he would really even have emotions about anything.
Why would it even
He would
be
just
he?
know
What is
everything, or
we just
exactly
it's just
it.
us.
It.
It's there's
That's
no
what I,
God.
well, that's what I
That's
mean
the
is
whole
like
thing.
we apply humanity
There's
to
no
a
way to
God.
even there's no way to even do it without creating an agent and putting a person behind it. We just personify everything, and
Hmm.
it's just you. It's just the powerful. It's just leaders. It's just presidents and dictators. That's God. That's who's trying to be God.
Well,
And
I think we'd all live more rich and fulfilling lives if we just all accepted that there's just nothing when you die. This is your chance, so take it and do what you want to do, and just know that when you die, there's no heaven, there's no golden mansions or
yeah.
fucking virgins waiting for you. It's nothing. It's gonna be just like it was before you were born. You won't even know you're dead. You'll just be
Yeah.
gone.
I think that we've had gods as explanations as like moral arbiters for so long. It's just like ingrained
Hmm.
to like appeal to a higher authority, which is really like your parents. Like it's just an outcropping of the need to appease your parents, you know. And then when you become an adult, you're like, well, who do I appease now? There's no one to say I did a good job. So gods are the ones who are judging you. They're the celestial parents, or you have like what is it called? Multi gods, where you have like gods that also fight each other and gods that one god for the rain and one god for the wind, and it's really just this. You're just kind of
And
in
that's how
there
storms are
somewhere.
created, is when the wind
Yeah,
and the
but
water god are fighting
I
their
like
war.
those religions way better than I like monotheistic dictatorship type
Well, it's because
gods.
they're more rich for storytelling purposes. I feel like they're
Well,
just
they
more
are
fascinating in
stories,
that
yeah.
way. Yeah.
They're just myths that sort of explain away things and explain, well, if you do a good job, then we'll have a good harvest or whatever.
Hmm.
Um
If you
there's
sacrifice 17 virgins spread their blood amongst your crops,
and then you have
they'll
good
grow
crops and then you'll
so
keep
good.
doing it.
Hmm.
Well, it's like if you do experiments on animals and you just put two things and they just happen to correlate, even though if they have nothing to do with each other, that they'll just keep doing it. Like if every time they spin around a thing once and they peck at it, if like one time the food comes out, they'll just keep doing that over and over and over, even though it has nothing to do with whether the food comes out of the little mechanism.
It's just that it
Because we
happened
just
once.
you're trying to figure out how the world works and you just keep doing things that you think are right, but that's not really about war. But
Well, I
um
mean, we all keep fighting wars because we're fighting for what we think is right. So we kill the other people who oppose
yeah,
that.
I looked up the philosophy of war on Wikipedia, which is the probably the like compendium of philosophy,
No, of course.
um and purely accurate, but it's very sparse. It doesn't There's not a ton of information related to just philosophy and war, because I think it's more political philosophy that really encapsulates war as a mechanism. But there were some people who talked about war specifically. One of the things I thought was interesting is this theory that you can have a just war. Like you can, as a country, decide to go to war and morally justify the whole thing if you follow these particular rules. So one is just authority, just cause, right intention, and last resort. So it's like you have the authority to um, do this thing legally, which would be like through Congress and through like the acceptance of the people.
Hmm.
And then you have just cause, which means that it's justifiable, it's necessary, it's an appropriate response. Um, right intention, which means that you're doing it for like the right reasons. Like you're not doing it just because you want to kill the other people. Um, and then the other one is last resort, which means you've already tried diplomacy and you've tried to do other things other than war. So I thought that was kind of interesting that you could essentially war is a kind of purposeful murder system. Um,
What a
right?
great way
There's
to
like a
put.
goal. There's like a
Can we
goal.
change it to that instead of war? We're just going to call this the purposeful murder system.
It's like justifiable mass murder system, right? That's essentially what a war is. Um, unless, but you also think of a war as like any two groups fighting. Like if you think of like prehistoric wars or even like tribal wars, they might have only been like 30, 40, 50, 100 people, and they would
Hmm.
just go fucking throw spears at each other. And it was probably mostly for territory and for slaves and things like that. So it's it doesn't have to be massive for it to be a war.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, even like I don't know, like a football team is kind of like going to war with the other team. So I
Well,
don't
no,
know.
they'll say that sometimes, you know. Why or what is it? Is it boxing or UFC when they're always like, let's go to war? Is like that's how they start the match, right?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Probably MMA, I would think. I mean, they're
I feel
literally
like I've just heard that
trying to
somewhere.
beat the
Maybe that's
shit
just
out of each
a
other.
movie thing that I saw once, and I just assumed that
Yeah.
that was real life.
I think men are always talking about like, oh, let's go to war.
Well, it's like that hyper masculine thing, you know. That's like part of the
Yeah,
masculine culture of
warrior.
our country, because probably mostly stemming from World War II, because that was like the big baby booming event
Yeah.
after it was over. And so, you know, you grew up listening to your parents or your father mostly talk about all these World War II events. And then their kid probably ended up fucking getting stuck in Vietnam. And then that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like war is kind of, it's almost been like a cyclical generational thing
Yeah.
until now, recently. I mean, you got to figure the last major war would have been Vietnam, in terms of like there actually being a
The
draft and
amount of
like a
people.
ton of
Yeah.
people going and having to participate. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we had the Iraq War, there was what, Desert Storm and things like that, but those are all pretty, I mean, much smaller conflicts that didn't require mass amounts of the male population to go fucking put their lives on the line.
Yeah. I think there's definitely like patriotism and heroism going on with it. And if it's a if just war, if people think that it's justified, then a warrior is a noble agent of that. And
Mhm.
I don't think that's always wrong. I don't think it's always wrong to kill, and I don't think it's wrong to defend yourself. But it's tough when you're preemptively attacking other people on behalf of other people. It always ends up being retributed, and the original, like, there's no like now it's over now, yeah, other than when you
Mhm.
kill everybody, or the other team surrenders. Like it's not the same as like uh like you get a parking ticket, you pay the ticket, and now you're done. It's over.
Mhm.
It's like, you killed my brother, I don't care why, I'm going to kill you. And then that guy goes, well, you killed my brother, I'm going to kill you. Like
Mhm.
it's just this
Yeah, it's kind
constant
of like
cycle.
the,
There's no real like, now we're even. It
it's
doesn't
always like one
happen.
of the morals in like any revenge story usually is like, oh, where does
Yeah.
it end, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It I don't know. It ends because you don't have kids. Like it's always the
Yeah.
son that like revenges the father. So maybe like if you don't like your dad, you're like kind of happy you got murdered. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's all weird. Um, but I what I think is interesting is when people justify or talk about like rules of war. Like, okay, we're going to war and the goal is to kill the other side or maim them or otherwise, you know, destroy their will to fight. Um, but we're not going to use biological warfare, or we're not going to shoot medics, or we're um What other rules are
See,
there?
that's
You know what I mean?
the medic rule is
Those
an
are kind of
interesting
interesting.
one because
Yeah,
I like that one the most because I like the idea of them being like, we're not going to shoot the people that are literally just there to help. Because most of the time, medics don't even carry weapons on them. They're literally, it's
I
just
know.
medical gear, and that's their whole thing is just trying to save people. Um,
Or they're
and
helping either side too. A lot
yeah,
of
I've
times
seen,
they'll
yeah.
they'll end up helping the other side too. So, but at the same time, if you hate the other country and those medics are allowing those soldiers to come back and kill you, why wouldn't you kill them? They're
But
the
the
enemy.
but I think that's where like the individual comes into play because even in the example of World War II, like there were a lot of people who were gun ho about going to fight because Japan bombed us, right? But there's like a lot of Japanese soldiers and American soldiers that don't want to be there. Like they would rather be home with their families, working their farms, just living their lives peacefully. So I feel like that's where you find these interactions where a medic will save the life of an enemy combatant because it's like this is just another dude that probably doesn't want to be here. There are people who probably are fucking bloodthirsty and are happy to be there shooting each other, but
Yeah.
I feel like most people they're doing it because they're being forced to through conscription or whatever other fucking methods that some of these countries
Yeah.
use. If you're under the rule of a dictator and he's forcing you to do this or he's going to just shoot you anyway. I mean, I think that's why some of these rules you see kind of crop up, and that's why I find the one with the medics so fascinating because it's like it's cool that despite all this like madness that's going on, there's still like this level of respect for somebody who's just there to try to save lives, regardless of what's going on. Um, but it's interesting, like the biological warfare one, because it's like if you really wanted just to crush your fucking enemy and be done with this and save the lives of your own soldiers, then yeah, why wouldn't you not just use this fucking horribly lethal thing like the atom bomb, where you just like, well, we just drop this, and guess what? None of our soldiers have to die. It will just obliterate this whole
Yeah.
fucking conflict, basically.
Other, I guess with atom bombs and such, there's fallout that is left over, so it ruins the land for
Mm-hmm.
you.
No, I
So I
guess
can
that's
see why you
true.
would want to do that. That's also why you don't want to use biological warfare, because a lot of times it spreads to your country or it stays in the water system. So there's kind of purposeful reasons not to use those types of things. But then there's also like napalm. Like napalm, I think has been banned because it just burns people and they don't always die, and that's a horrific way to die. But
Mm-hmm.
but who cares? What is the point? The whole point of a war is to be terrifying to the enemy and to crush their spirit and to kill them. I mean, that's not the whole point, but that's how you win the war, is by violence. And so why does it matter if you're burning people alive or poisoning them, their drinking system, or like infiltrating their system and like hacking in and stealing all their money or whatever? I don't know. There's like so many things that you can do if your goal is just to win as opposed to be civilized. Like, is it civilized to go to war at all?
Well, wasn't that was a big thing in the American Revolutionary, wasn't it? Because like the British had like this very stringent
Yeah,
set of rules,
exactly.
and
They
then
would
the
line
Americans
up.
were like, "Yeah, fuck that," and they were using tactics from native
Yeah,
tribes and
more
different things
guerrilla
like that.
style
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. And that I
But
mean,
you
I think
have
part
to
of
if
the
you're a
mhm.
smaller force and you have knowledge of the land. And why would you stand in a line and get shot? It
Yeah,
doesn't make any
exactly.
sense. It's kind of like all like, why are you, the tactics are, there's a goal behind it. The goal is to lessen your casualties and increase and win. And
Hmm.
so why would you do anything other than what does that, as
Yeah,
opposed to, well, this is how we do it, and we get in a line. And I mean, obviously we don't do that anymore, but
we stop at 1 o'clock for
yes,
tea and
yeah,
crumpets,
exactly.
and then we'll resume battle
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah, it's just an interesting thing. But I think it is because when you're actually in front of another person, unless you really hate them, you actually don't want to kill them, like, for the most part. Like, you don't mind scaring people. Like, I mean, I'll scare somebody every once in a while if I'm like worried about something. Like, maybe I'd scare somebody, but I think it takes another step to actually want to kill somebody.
Well,
So
I think
it's
in
not
terms
that
of,
easy to just drop a bomb on somebody or use
yeah.
biological warfare against them, because you know it'll have these certain
Well, I
effects.
think in a battlefield, I feel like part of the reason why you would end up killing somebody, because I feel like most soldiers don't. I mean, you don't want to kill another person. Like they're not murderers, but it's like at a certain point, it's like either
Yeah.
you have to do it or they're going to do it. And they're thinking the same thing. So it's like, who's going to be the first one to pull the trigger inevitably? And
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to be the person who doesn't, because that usually means you're dead. So,
Yeah. It's like the like let's say you're in the modern military, American military, and you're over in Afghanistan, and like you chose to be there, you must believe that the terrorists are actually terrorists. And I think that there are terrorists over there who
oh, yeah.
hurt their own people, who use their own people, who are just interested in um kind of causing chaos and death to Americans and other countries and the opposite religions. But do we really need to be over there fighting them? Is that going to stop them from coming over here and or but I mean, we don't know, because if they're planning to come over here and do more things, then keeping it over there and trying to uproot it, has some justification. They're evil. They want to kill all Americans. If you know that and you believe it, then it's in your best interest to go stop them, I guess. It's interesting because I appreciate and respect a lot of things about like specific people who are in the military, like Jocko Willink, who I think he was in Ramadi and all this, during the early days of like war on terror and stuff. I think during the Bush era, I think is when he was in there. Um, but and like there's a lot to respect about like discipline um and having kind of a cause and trying to save your men and all that stuff. But at the same time, I just don't know what's going on enough to be like super on board with any of it.
Yeah.
It's my own fault, and I don't need to be. I can luxuriate in my peaceful life. Um, but is it justified to go over there because you think you're preemptively stopping people, or should you wait until you get bombed to retaliate?
Well,
It's
and
hard to say.
I think we're at that. I think that's part of why the people like they're looking at pulling troops and stuff out of that area is because I mean we went over there after 9/11 and we've been over there for so long. I feel like now we've sort of I feel like a lot of like everyday citizens don't really know why we're over there anymore. Like there was a very clear cut reason after 9/11 why we went.
Yeah.
And now it's like, wait, why are we over there? What's going on with this Palestine
Well,
conflict? You know
what
what I
is
mean?
going on?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Palestine and such is a totally different thing than the Afghani situation, but that's another one that I don't understand particularly well with Israel and Palestine. And it seems like Palestine is doing all these really horrific things, um, and we are in line with Israel. So I don't know. It's there's a lot of international political stuff I just don't keep up with, and so if something crazy happens, I'm probably going to be surprised, but I shouldn't be. I should
Yeah.
just accept that I don't really know what's going on. And there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, politically, diplomatically. And um, it's like this balance of like, who's going to shoot at who. Like North Korea always like shooting off missiles just to piss people off and scare
Mhm.
people, because they have the resources but they have nothing to do. What are they going to do? They can't go anywhere, they can't do anything, they
Well,
can't
I
increase
think they know
anything.
that they would just be obliterated too.
Of course they
If
would.
they genuinely tried to start a conflict with like
South Korea
any
or
country that's
whatever.
allied with us, we would just obliterate them. They're not that big of a
Yeah.
country. China is like realistically like the only
Yeah.
threat where it would
And China
that would be
and
a
North
serious
Korea
thing.
are in line with each other.
Hmm.
So it's just like, but we're also majorly connected to China, and
Yeah.
we're also majorly connected to South Korea. So it's like North Korea is just this like blight on the whole. Like, what do they offer? Why would anybody want to be friends with them? It's really odd. I just don't
Hmm.
understand it. Maybe because they have some military force that somebody could use later as an ally, but like the way that they treat their people is just seems like what is the point of that place? It's so
Mhm.
barbaric and so old fashioned. It's not getting anywhere. I think if there was one place that I think a lot of people would be like, screw it, just go take them over, it'd be North Korea. Like, we just hate them. They're the kind of place, like, I think a lot of people would be like, fuck them. And
Yeah,
maybe that's wrong. I mean, that's could all be propaganda. I don't
I'm
know.
kind of
I
fascinated.
seems
Yeah,
shitty. It seems horrible. And I think
it's
just based on that evidence, I'd probably be okay with it. But maybe we'd all be wrong and they're like doing super well and they all have little gardens.
yeah. I mean, if they were like, hey, we're gonna, take care of North Korea and just reestablish North and South Korea as just Korea again, and it'll
Yeah,
just be
and give it
one
over
big.
to South Korea,
Yeah, I would be like, okay.
liberate
I
them.
mean, I guess that makes sense. They're again just another dictatorship. So I feel like we should work on toppling any dictatorship in the world because it's a fucking terrible way for people to live.
Well, it seems to be, and it seems, but is it, isn't that just the U.S. going around colonizing places and creating their own, because
Well,
if we
establishing
take
their
it
form
over,
of
then
government.
yes, well, forcing democracy on a place that isn't used to it, that doesn't like it, that isn't interested. There's a lot of benefits that come from a centralized government that just takes care of everything.
Hmm.
It allows the citizens to not worry about who's in charge and what's going on, and and they have these meager lives anyway. um you know I guess we all want it to just be like democracy plus all this free market capitalism stuff, but it just doesn't work that way when the government's controlling the resources. And in a democracy they can do really horrible things too, and
Yeah.
it can all be a sham. And that's why democracies don't last very long over there, um because they just get, just somebody gets assassinated and somebody just takes over again. It's like it's not that easy to just force cultural change on an entire people. So, and it's a huge cost to whoever's trying to do it. Colonizing an area and taking it over. Like, let's just make it America.
Yeah.
Like, let's just. That's why, like, at some point, everyone imagines there'll just be a world government, but I don't know if it can happen. I don't know if that's even
I don't
making. I
if
don't know if that
that
makes any sense, because how do
yeah.
you how do you govern an area that's that big? How do you all get on the same page? What does that even mean? I don't
I
know what
feel like
that
the only way
means.
you would possibly see something like that happen is it would be so far in the future to the point where we have maybe started colonizing other planets. So then it's like as you're divvying up your people to literally other planets, I could see it being like, okay, well, this planet's under this government, and then
Yeah,
which is a very
yeah,
sci-fi
yeah,
kind of story
yeah.
related trope. But until
It's so
until something
interesting.
like that,
Yeah,
I don't think
I
you would
think
ever see
I
it.
think what you would have to do is like really propagandize everyone toward a particular ideology. Like, if you could just get everybody to believe in one thing, like either one religion or one political philosophy, or like if we had one enemy that we can all go around, like if we're all being attacked by another planet, then that's how you would do that. But otherwise, it's always going to be like, my thinking is different than your thinking, and we have different ways of dealing with societies and politics and philosophies just that are not compatible with each other.
Well, and a lot of times those beliefs completely contradict. I mean, if you have like a tribe of people who are cannibals and that's like their thing and it's a total normal part of their life, I mean, that flies in the face of many other people's beliefs. So then those people are like, "It's fucking cannibals got to go."
It's
I
just
mean,
not it's not negotiable.
yeah.
So we can't have diplomacy when things are non-negotiable. And if your government is communistic and that's what you're spreading around the world, and this government is not like that, those aren't like compatible systems. Communism and like dictatorship type centralized, you know, systems with no spreading of power around is not compatible with freedom and spreading power around.
Yeah.
So they don't work together. So I don't know. It's
Unless we can take
Scary.
advantage of their free labor to produce our own capitalist
They're
products for our people.
Yeah, well, and that's what I think is really going on for the most part.
Yeah.
It's just powerful people taking advantage of less powerful people and
Hmm.
just creating wealth for themselves in ways that are very manipulative and very um, controlled. Very like there are people who know what's going on way better than I do, and I'm not part of that group. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not in that society.
Strange.
It's
Strangely
different.
enough,
We're
I am
not
not.
in the same we're not on the same side necessarily. Not that they're trying to kill us, but like we're not we don't have the same kind of lives. And I'm mostly talking about politicians, leaders, military folks, you know, and presidents, that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. They're not in
Yeah.
the same world as everybody else. They can die like everybody else, and they can get sick, and they can, you know what I mean? They're just people, but
Hmm.
their ability to manipulate is just different, and their thinking about the way that people should be used and resources should be used is just different. I think most of us on the as pawns in the system, we just want to we like cooperating with each other. We like our little economies. We like our our hobbies and our kids and our schools and things like that. We just like that low level of control, just our own little worlds.
Hmm. Well, we're all just trying to get by in it. We just all want to fucking just live our lives to our specifications and
Mostly.
not be
And then
bothered.
and then we get, interjected with other people's wills and other people's power.
Hmm.
So just crazy.
Uh, what's your recommendation this week?
Sure. My recommendation is something I've been watching a bunch of, just kind of, I don't know why,
Hmm.
which is on YouTube. It's a Survivorman with Les Stroud. I don't know
Hmm.
if you've ever watched those, but it's
Hmm.
a guy. So Bear Grylls,
Yeah,
Man
yeah.
versus Wild, where his stuff is just much more produced and much more adventure based, and there's some survival stuff in there, but it just doesn't seem as hardcore. But
Hmm.
Survivorman is not like that. I mean, it's still produced and all that, but he doesn't have a crew, and the his safety net is like miles away, and he will just go like get stranded on an island, and with very minimal, like no food and no water, or like one little bottle of water and his knife and like a couple of items. And then he films himself with like three cameras, and he stays there for like 5 to 10 days, and he'll just show you what he does, how he does it. Like he tries to reenact a real survivor situation. He does it a lot, like in a lot of different places. I'm watching one where he's in Mexico, and it's like super hot, and he like has trouble finding food, and he's like overheating. And I think some of it is dramatized by him because he
Hmm.
wants to make a good show, and some of it is him making it harder on himself to show what it's like. But it's super fun. It's super interesting to watch his little techniques for making fire and for finding water and for determining what he can and can't eat and stuff like that in different places. Um, so I've just enjoyed that show.
That's cool. I mean, even if it is kind of over dramatized, it's like if the tips and tricks and techniques and things he's showing are like applicable and real, then it's you still get something out of it while being entertained at least.
Yeah, it seems to be. And a lot of it is just, he doesn't sensationalize the experience. He doesn't he most of it's just him waiting around, like trying not to expend energy, trying to like just get through another day without succumbing to exhaustion and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Just super interesting, pretty practical kind of stuff. So that is my recommendation.
Excellent.
What about you? Yeah, I'm guessing
Um,
Band of Brothers.
oh, yep, that was gonna be my one. And then so Band of Brothers, and then also there's another show that HBO did in 2008 called The Pacific, which
I've heard of
is
that.
a similar similar thing to Band of Brothers, like another 10-part miniseries. But that one is kind of from the like that one covers the Pacific theater of the World War II
Yeah.
conflict, because Band of Brothers is all European. So yeah, both of those are really good. I haven't finished the Pacific. I've only watched a few episodes of it, but it's not this like Band of Brothers was it's very realistic, but it's also very focused on its characters.
Mhm.
And like you really get to know them and care for a lot of the characters throughout the course of the show. And whereas the Pacific seems more just about the horror of war, like it's very because the Japanese were just such a different enemy from the Germans.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a much more brutal show. I feel like it's good for people who are more interested in just kind of the violent chaos of war versus the more contemplative human toll, on like the
Yeah.
soldiers wonder went and kind of what it cost them. But yeah, both those shows are great. If people are interested, you can watch them on HBO Max. That's how I've been watching them, because it just has all the HBO shows on it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's
Nice. Lots of good
mine.
war movies. What's your other than those two, what are your favorite war movies or shows?
War movies.
Saving Private Ryan,
Saving
just
Private Ryan's
amazing.
definitely
Such
up
a good
there.
movie.
The Thin Red Line's really good too.
Yep.
Um,
That was a good one. Um,
in terms of the medics, that one, Hacksaw Ridge was actually really surprisingly good too, because that just follows a medic the whole time
yeah,
who
yeah.
doesn't carry a
Wasn't he the
weapon.
one who was a conscientious objector, but
Hmm.
they didn't let him leave? So they were like, well, you don't have to carry a gun, but you got to go be in the battlefield. And so he was
Yeah,
a
but
medic and he
everybody
just
was
helped
giving
people.
him,
And
everybody gives
he,
him shit for not carrying a weapon and all this,
but he
and
would
he's
like
like,
run in and just like grab people and save them. And he saved
mhm.
like tons of lives.
And
Yeah,
he was
it was a
somebody I think
cool
who saved
story.
lives of people even on the opposing side.
Yeah,
Like he just any life that he could save, he would.
yeah. He
Gosh,
was
what
like
else?
a weird like juxtaposition to everyone else. Like he
Hmm.
was the only one who was like, I don't care if I die. I just want to help people. It's
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with you? Fucking idiot.
Another one of my war movies that I really enjoy is All Quiet on the Western Front, because that was the rare occasion where you got to see the war from that was World War I, but you got to see it from the
Mhm.
side of the Germans, which was it's always interesting when you get to see a story from the opposing side of
Sure.
where you come from, and you kind of get to humanize characters that are typically just seen as the villains and things. Obviously, it was
Um,
Germany before the Nazi Reich. It was Germany, not the Nazis, in World War I. So makes it easier to relate to than if it was trying to follow the Nazis in World War II. But which is that's a show that I or a movie that I would watch too if they were just like this World War II from the perspective of the Nazis. It's like not because I share any beliefs with Nazis, but it's interesting to get in the headspace and see through the eyes of just different people and different beliefs and outlooks, just to
yeah, it's
sort
a
of
tough
try
one.
to
It's a
it was.
tough one because you would immediately be justifying their position, and nobody wants that.
Mhm.
Because if you're going to put it from their position, they thought they were doing the right thing, and
Yeah.
that's a tough thing to like show people. Like that. What's interesting is like for people who study World War II and the Nazis specifically, is that like people are always talking about how evil they were and how like they think they would do something different, but that's not how it works. When your entire society is in a movement,
Yeah, you go
most
along
people
with it.
go along with it. You kind of have to. Like it doesn't make sense for you to go against them because you would immediately ostracize yourself and it would be ruinous, but also like it was propagandized, like they made it seem justified.
Hmm.
And it was only like much later, near the ending of the war, that the people I think really started to understand what was going on, because a lot of especially the concentration camps and stuff, that was all hidden from the actual civilians.
Yeah, that was part of Band of Brothers. I didn't realize how late into the conflict that those were discovered, which it
Yeah.
makes sense because they wouldn't have known that was happening until they invaded
Yeah.
Germany
Well, they
because.
knew that they were like rounding up Jews and
Mhm,
other people. They just didn't know why, or well, they probably knew why, but they didn't know what they were doing with them.
mhm.
And at first, they were just going to camps, and then soon they were just being murdered. So it wasn't, they weren't even being killed right away. But I think they realized that was harder to keep them alive as prisoners. And I don't know, it just got out of hand. This
To put it
escalated.
lightly,
This
yeah.
escalated quickly. Oh no. Some movies that I think are good war movies are Glory, which is about the Civil War.
Hmm.
Tears of the Sun, which is
It's a Bruce Willis movie, isn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't
it's
he in it?
fucking super cool. Oh, even like what's the one where the only lone survivor? That's pretty fucking cool. With Marky Mark. And The Patriot is a really good one. Mel Gibson. That's a Civil War one, or no, that's a
American
Revolutionary War one.
Revolution. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good movie because he's got a hatchet and fucking kills people. Um, and then what's the other Mel Gibson one? Braveheart. That's a great one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not obviously based on, well, it's based on the conflict, but like not super realistic.
Well, that's the thing with the Patriot and Braveheart. Both they're
Yeah, they're
pretty
fictionalized
Hollywoodized.
for
Yeah,
sure. Um, but yeah, there's a
entertaining
lot of good
nonetheless.
good war movies out there.
You have the classics like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket, and
Apocalypse Now, yeah, those are all really crazy. I think Apocalypse Now is one of the like creepiest movies, even though like almost nothing happens in the movie.
that movie was boring as
It's
fuck.
I
As
know
I watched it because it was I
you're
didn't watch
supposed,
it till
yeah,
like
there's like
like a
nothing
few years
going
ago.
on in it,
Hmm.
but like kind of almost something happens, and that but the whole tone of it is just feels gross.
Hmm.
It feels like you're there, and I think they did such a good job with that movie. Um, the kind of tone that the director did with it.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's not like my favorite movie. Um, Apocalypse Now. I think it just gets a ton of like a lot of people quote it and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. There's tons of really good ones, but we don't have to go over it all.
yeah. I can't think of many. I know there's much more, and I'll probably think of them later
Yeah,
when we're done. I'll be like, oh shit, I forgot to say this one. But
for sure. All right, dude. I think that's it. We're at over almost 2 hours.
oh,
So
hello.
it's been a while. We got to chat and catch up, and thanks for listening, everybody. Go to joesnotesblog.com. You can see I took some photos. I ended up going, instead of going to that park, I left and I went to a different park that literally has a no dog sign. So I was like, thank God. And I took some pictures of some birdies. Do you want to see them real quick since we're on the Zoom? I'll share my
Yeah.
screen real quick here. And then if you're on YouTube, you can see them. Otherwise, go to Joseph's blah, 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 blah.
Go to Joe's Notes blog.
Blah, 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 blah.
And you can go to Amazon.com if you look up Channing Cornwall. That's where you'll find all of my books. For those of you who are interested, I write a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
So
you
there's
got
usually
lots of good stuff.
so
Can you see this?
yeah.
Okay, so there's some ducks.
Ooh.
And here, let's just do this. Boop, little bird, snaky poo, Mount Hood, a squirrel, another squirrel, some Boyds. That was pretty good. There's some
Oh, that's
baby
cool.
baby
Mm-hmm.
gooses. There's a bunch of them, and then baby squirrels. Like, have you ever seen a
Oh my
baby
God.
squirrel?
No, actually,
No,
now that
it's
I was like,
crazy.
I don't think I've ever seen a baby squirrel.
Yeah.
Those things are adorable, though.
Well, they're really cute. And then they just like I barely caught them, and they ran off and hid because obviously they're not trying to get caught. But yeah, just did some photos at the park, and yep, buy Channing's books or read my reviews and then buy them. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Do both.
I don't know.
Just do both.
I don't know why I keep rating these stupid book reviews. I'm about done with my current book. Actually, I just finished it, Terminal List. So I got to write one for that.
Nice.
And that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.